Ah, look who just caused an emergency meeting. Ah, welcome back, you unstoppable force of nature. You beautiful accident that shouldn't exist according to their laws. Someone just broke protocol, didn't they? Someone inside their circle, inside their camp, inside their little safe zone of manufactured control, just did something they swore they'd never do. They warned them about you, not your actions, not your words, not your reputation. They warned them about your bloodline. Yeah, you heard that right. Your lineage, your ancestry, the code running through your veins that they thought was dormant, buried, forgotten. But someone on the inside, someone who's been watching longer than you realize, just pulled them aside and whispered the one thing that makes cowards lock their doors at night. Stop. Stop before it's too late. You don't know what you're dealing with. You don't know what flows through them. And now, now they're sitting in silence trying to process what they just heard. Because it wasn't a threat. It wasn't dramatics. It wasn't someone being protective of you. No, no, no. It was a warning. A genuine, cold, factual warning delivered by someone who knows. Someone who's seen what happens when people like them push people like you too far. Someone who recognizes the signatures, the patterns, the energy that doesn't show up in files or records but shows up in outcomes. Someone who's studied enough history to know that certain bloodlines don't break, they erupt. And you carry that in your bones whether you've claimed it yet or not. They thought you were just another name, another face, another obstacle they could outmaneuver, silence, delete. But that insider just shattered their entire framework with one sentence. That one's different. That one's not playing the same game. You're not dealing with a person. You're dealing with a legacy that's been sleeping, and you just woke it up. So now they're terrified. Not anxious, not worried, terrified. Don't, because they finally understand they weren't competing with you. They were gambling with forces they don't have clearance to comprehend. And the worst part for them, the person who warned them wasn't your friend, wasn't your ally, wasn't someone trying to protect you. They were trying to protect them. They were trying to save their miserable operation from stepping into something ancient, something that doesn't forgive, something that doesn't negotiate. They were trying to prevent the inevitable collapse that happens every single time someone underestimates what you come from. Because your bloodline, it's not about wealth or status or documents. It's about survival through apocalypse. It's about resurrection through betrayal. It's about carrying a frequency that reality itself has to adjust to when you finally stop hiding it. And you've been hiding it, haven't you? Playing small, playing safe, playing human. But they pushed too hard, and something inside you started waking up. And someone on the inside felt the shift before you even announced it. That's what they can't handle. That's what's keeping them up tonight. The fact that you didn't have to say a word, didn't have to make a move, didn't have to prove anything, and someone who knows, someone who's been in the room when these patterns play out before, just looked at your energy signature and said, "Abort mission. Walk away." This one will outlive your strategy, outlast your resources, and outmaneuver your entire legacy without even trying, because it's in their blood. It's not learned. It's inherited, and you can't compete with inheritance. So, congratulations. You just became the first person in their operations history to trigger an internal warning system. Not from you. from someone trying to save them from you. And that right there changes everything. Because now they know. Now they can't unsee it. Now every time they look at you, they're not seeing a person anymore. They're seeing a countdown timer to their own irrelevance. Let me tell you what happened in that room, in that call, in that moment when the warning was delivered. Picture this. They're sitting there, probably smug, probably confident, probably running through their usual playbook of manipulation, sabotage, control. Maybe they were laughing at you. Maybe they were planning the next move. Maybe they were celebrating what they thought was a victory. And then the door opens, or the message comes through, and someone who never speaks up just shatters the entire atmosphere. We need to talk about them. We need to talk about their lineage. We need to stop. And the room goes cold, because this person, this insider, they don't panic. They don't overreact. They don't waste words. So when they speak like this, everyone listens. And what they said next, it wasn't speculation. It wasn't theory. It was recognition. I've seen this before. Not with them, but with others who carry what they carry. And every single time, the ones who pushed too far didn't just lose. They disappeared. Not physically, but energetically. Their power dissolved. Their influence evaporated. Their names became warnings. And now your enemies are sitting there trying to process the fact that they're not dealing with an individual. They're dealing with a pattern, a lineage, a bloodline that's been sharpening itself for generations, through pain, through exile, through survival against impossible odds. Your ancestors didn't just endure, they evolved. And that evolution encoded itself into your cells, into your instincts, into the way you move through the world even when you don't understand why you do what you do. You've felt it, haven't you? That weird knowing, that strange confidence that shows up when you should be terrified. That calm in the storm that doesn't make logical sense. That's not you, that's them. Your bloodline speaking through you, guiding you, protecting you from threats you can't even see yet. And someone on the inside just confirmed what you've been feeling your whole life but couldn't name. You're not ordinary. You're not explainable. You're not someone they can study and predict, because you don't operate on the same frequency as the people they're used to controlling. So now they're scrambling. Now they're reevaluating. Now they're going back through every interaction trying to figure out how they missed it. How did we not see this? How did we not know? What else are we missing? And the answer is everything. They missed everything because they were looking at you through their lens, their framework, their understanding of power. But your power doesn't show up in their system. It shows up in the aftermath, in the silence after the storm, in the way doors open for you that were welded shut for others, in the way you survive situations that should have buried you 6 feet deep. That's bloodline magic. That's ancestral intervention. That's the universe itself rearranging circumstances because you carry something too valuable to let perish. And they just found out that when you carry that kind of lineage, attacking you doesn't weaken you. It activates you. Every betrayal, every sabotage, every attempt to break you just woke up another layer of what you inherited. And now that it's awake, they can't put it back to sleep. The insider knew this. The insider saw the signs. Maybe it was the way you didn't break when you should have. Maybe it was the way you kept rising no matter how many times they knocked you down. Maybe it was the eerie calm in your eyes when they expected panic. Maybe it was the way synchronicities started bending toward you, the way luck became your shadow, the way obstacles dissolved right before impact, whatever it was. They recognized the signature, and they delivered the warning not because they like you, not because they're on your side, but because they've seen what happens next. And what happens next is that everyone who bet against you loses everything they thought was secure. Not through your revenge, not through your attack, but through natural consequence. Because when you operate from bloodline power, the universe itself becomes your enforcer. You don't have to do anything. Reality reorganizes itself around people who made an enemy of the wrong lineage. Their plans fall apart. Their alliances crumble. Their confidence drains. And they can't figure out why, because they're still thinking in 3 dimensions, while you've been operating in frequencies they don't have access to. Now let's talk about what they're really afraid of. Because it's not your anger, it's not your potential, it's not even your success. What they're afraid of is the activation. See, they could handle you when you were unaware, when you were playing by their rules, when you were still trying to fit into systems designed to contain you. But the moment you start remembering, the moment you start claiming what's in your blood, the moment you stop apologizing for the power you carry, everything changes. And that insider just accelerated your activation by warning them. Because now you know. Now you know they know. Now you know there's something about you that makes people on the inside break protocol to issue warnings. And that knowledge, it's the final key. You don't have to understand every detail of your lineage. You don't have to trace your ancestry back 10 generations. All you have to know is that someone who's seen enough, who's studied enough, who's been in rooms where power is analyzed and dissected, looked at you and said, that one's untouchable. That one carries something we can't compete with. And it's true. You do carry something. Maybe it's the blood of survivors who refuse to be erased. Maybe it's the essence of ancestors who turned poverty into empires through sheer will. Maybe it's the frequency of healers who were burned at the stake but whose wisdom survived through whispers. Maybe it's the rage of the wrongfully exiled who spent lifetimes building power in the shadows until their descendants could walk in the light. Whatever it is, it's real, it's encoded, and it's been waiting for the right amount of pressure to activate. Well, congratulations. They provided the pressure. Every lie, every betrayal, every attempt to diminish you was just compression creating the diamond. And now that diamond is cutting through every illusion they built. Now that diamond is reflecting light in ways that blind anyone who stares too long. Now that diamond is worth more than everything they accumulated through manipulation and theft. So what happens now? What happens when they've been warned? When they know what you carry? When they realize they're not fighting a person but a legacy? They have 2 choices. They can back away slowly, apologize through their actions, if not their words, and hope you're merciful enough to let them fade into irrelevance. Or they can double down, ignore the warning, let their ego convince them they're the exception to the pattern, and watch in real time as everything they built collapses. Most of them will choose option 2. You know why? Because people who've never faced real consequence always believe they're special, always believe the rules don't apply to them, always believe they can outsmart what's coming. And that's perfect. That's exactly what needs to happen. Because when they ignore the warning, when they push forward anyway, when they convince themselves the insider was being dramatic, the universe gets to make an example out of them. Not for you. For the next generation of people who think they can attack someone carrying what you carry. And you're not even going to have to do anything. That's the beauty of bloodline power. You don't need revenge plots. You don't need elaborate schemes. You don't need to match their energy. All you need to do is keep existing, keep rising, keep building. The rest handles itself. They'll sabotage themselves. They'll turn on each other. They'll make mistakes they've never made before. They'll watch opportunities slip through their fingers while yours multiply. And they'll know. They'll know it's connected to you, but they won't be able to prove it because it's not happening in the physical realm. It's happening in the frequency realm where cause and effect don't follow the timelines they're used to. Where attacking someone protected by ancestral power creates ripples that come back as tsunamis. Where ignoring warnings from those who know creates consequences that rewrite entire destinies. Here's what's happening right now while you're reading this, hearing this, absorbing this. They're meeting again. They're talking about you again. But this time, it's different. This time there's fear in the room. This time the jokes have stopped. This time they're asking questions they don't want answers to. What do we actually know about them? Where did they come from? Why does nothing we try ever stick? Why do they keep surviving things that should end anyone else? And someone in that room, maybe the same insider, maybe someone else who's been paying attention, is going to say the thing nobody wants to hear. Because they're not supposed to be ended. Because they're carrying something that's been protecting itself for longer than any of us have been alive. Because we're not fighting them. We're fighting their entire lineage, and everyone who ever tried lost. So that's the conversation happening in rooms you'll never enter. That's the energy shift that just occurred in spaces where your name echoes louder than your presence. You've become the case study, the anomaly, the glitch in their system that keeps proving their system is obsolete. And the wildest part, you didn't even have to try. You just had to be yourself. Refuse to break. Keep moving forward. Trust your instincts, even when they didn't make sense. That's all it took. That's all it ever takes when you carry what you carry. Because bloodline power doesn't announce itself with trumpets and declarations. It announces itself through survival, through impossible comebacks, through doors opening at the exact right moment, through enemies destroying themselves, through warnings being issued by people who should be on their side, but recognize something bigger at play. So now we arrive at the question you've been asking yourself. Maybe consciously, maybe in the background of your mind. What is this bloodline? What am I actually carrying? And here's the truth. You don't need the full story. You don't need a genealogy report. You don't need to know every name and every struggle. All you need to know is that you're here. You survived what should have broken you. You're standing when you should be buried. You're thriving when you should be forgotten. That is the proof. That is the evidence. That is the bloodline announcing itself through you. Your very existence, your refusal to quit, your ability to rise every single time, that's not luck. That's not coincidence. That's ancestral power flowing through you, whether you acknowledge it or not. And now that the warning has been issued, now that they know, now that the secret is out, you have a choice. You can keep pretending you're ordinary, keep playing small, keep hiding what you carry, or you can step into it fully, claim it consciously, let it amplify everything you're already doing. And when you make that choice, when you stop apologizing for your power, when you stop dimming yourself to make others comfortable, something shifts in the atmosphere around you. People start treating you differently without knowing why. Opportunities start appearing without you chasing them. Enemies start retreating without you pushing. Because when you align with your bloodline consciously, when you stop resisting what's already in your veins, the universe stops testing you and starts clearing paths for you. That's not manifestation. That's activation. That's you finally matching the frequency that's been trying to express through you your entire life. So here's what they're realizing right now as the warning settles in, as the fear takes root. They didn't just attack a person. They attacked a portal. They didn't just betray someone. They betrayed a channel. They didn't just underestimate an individual. They underestimated an entire ancestral line that's been waiting for someone like you to carry it forward into this generation. And that line it doesn't forget. It doesn't forgive through words. It forgives through outcome. And the outcome is always the same. Those who honored it rise. Those who attacked it fall. Not dramatically, not immediately, but inevitably. And that inevitability, that's what keeps them up at night now. That's what makes their hands shake when your name comes up. That's what makes them second-guess every move, because they finally understand they're not playing against you. They're playing against something that's been winning for centuries. The insider knew this. The insider tried to save them. But you know what's beautiful about warnings? They only work if people listen. And people who've spent their lives getting away with betrayal, manipulation, control, they never listen. They can't. Their ego won't let them. So they'll ignore the warning. They'll convince themselves it's exaggerated. They'll tell themselves they're different, smarter, more prepared. And then they'll watch in slow motion as everything they touch turns to sand. As every alliance they built reveals itself as theater. As every victory they celebrated becomes the setup for their downfall. And somewhere in the back of their mind, in the 3 a.m. hours, when the mask comes off, they'll remember the warning. They'll remember the moment someone tried to save them from their own arrogance. And they'll realize too late that some battles aren't meant to be fought because the opponent isn't on the battlefield. The opponent is woven into the fabric of reality itself. And you're just getting started. Because now that you know, now that you've been reminded, now that the warning has reached your ears too, everything changes. You don't move the same anymore. You don't speak the same anymore. You don't carry yourself the same anymore. There's a weight now, a presence, an undeniable gravity that makes people stop and reconsider before they step to you. That's bloodline energy activating in real time. That's your ancestors standing behind you, around you, within you saying, "We've got this. We've been preparing you for this." Everything you've survived was training for what comes next. And what comes next is your elevation beyond anything they can comprehend, beyond anything you've even imagined, beyond the limitations of what you thought was possible for someone like you. Because here's the secret they don't teach you, the thing that insider knows, the thing your bloodline has always known. Power isn't something you achieve. It's something you remember. It's something you claim. It's something you stop running from. And the moment you stop running from it, the moment you turn around and face what's been chasing you your whole life, which is your own magnitude, your own capacity, your own destiny, that's when the game ends. That's when you stop being a player and become the board itself. That's when they stop attacking you and start studying you, hoping to understand how you did what you did, so maybe, just maybe, they can replicate a fraction of it. But they can't. Because you can't replicate bloodline. You can't copy ancestry. You can't fake the kind of power that comes from surviving the unsurvivable across generations. Well, well, well. Look who they underestimated. Look who they drew the map for, the timeline for, the trap for, and then watched walk straight through the fire without a single scar they had planned for. You were supposed to be a footnote, a cautionary tale, a name people whispered as an example of what happens when someone gets too close to things they were never meant to touch. They had blueprints, meeting rooms, quiet conversations in hallways where your name was the subject and their verdict was already written before the trial even began. And yet, here you stand. Not defeated, not diminished, not hollowed out by the years they spent engineering your collapse. Here you stand, whole, dangerous in your stillness, and terrifyingly calm, because you did something they never once planned for. You moved. And that one move, that single, quiet decision, rewrote everything they thought was locked, sealed, and delivered. Before we go further, The Crown of Ash, a dark motivational field manual for the exiled Grimgrit edition. The Quiet Edge Grimgrit Edition 2, links in the description. Read them. They were written for exactly this. They counted on your patterns staying the same. They counted on your instincts remaining polite, your grace remaining available, your trust remaining extended to the people who had already decided how to use it. They counted on you being the version of yourself that they had studied. Calm in the right ways, cautious in the right ways, limited in the ways they needed you to be limited. And they were so confident in that counting that they built an entire future on it. They made promises based on it. They aligned people based on it. They invested time and relational capital and quiet coordination based on their absolute certainty that you were a fixed quantity inside their equation. And then you moved, and the equation collapsed. Not piece by piece, not with warning, all at once, the way a calculation collapses when a single assumed constant turns out to be a variable they never thought to account for. Because here is what they never understood, what they could not have understood, operating as they were from their particular kind of intelligence. The kind that catalogs and predicts and controls, but cannot genuinely know. There was something in you that preceded their study of you. Something that existed before any of them arrived, with their assessments and their blueprints and their quiet campaigns. Something so rooted and so real that no amount of external pressure could dislodge it, though they spent considerable time and considerable effort pressing against it from every direction they could access. They pressed, and what they produced was not the collapse they scheduled. What they produced was compression, and compressed things do not dissolve. They clarify, they sharpen. They wait for the moment when the pressure lifts, and then they move with an accuracy that no blueprint could have anticipated. You are the result of everything they tried to prevent. Let that land. Every year they spent monitoring your patterns, they were also giving you time to develop depths they were not aware of. Every environment they engineered to limit your growth, you were quietly cultivating something underneath their architecture that they had no instruments to measure. Every seed of doubt they planted in you, in the soil around you, in the minds of the people they thought they could use to shape your world. They were also, without knowing it, teaching you a curriculum about how this works, about how people who fear what they cannot control behave when they encounter the thing they fear. And now you hold that curriculum, and now you are outside their reach. And the history they wrote for you is not the history being lived. Your move changed everything, and we are only beginning. They started planning long before you knew there was a plan. That is the thing about people who operate in shadows. They do not announce the war. They simply begin it, quietly, systematically, with the patience of people who have already decided the outcome before the opening move is placed. They studied your patterns across time, across different environments, across the range of conditions you moved through, without knowing you were being observed as a subject rather than encountered as a person. They cataloged your loyalties, noted who made you lower your guard, identified who you trusted with the soft parts of yourself that you never showed in public spaces. They took inventory of your vulnerabilities the way a general maps terrain before an invasion. Not out of curiosity, not out of admiration, out of cold and calculated intent to use every soft spot as a pressure point when the moment arrived. They had timelines. They had conversations with people you called allies, in rooms you were not invited into, building a shared language about you that was designed to shape the way those people saw you before they even saw you. They constructed an architecture around your life that was engineered to look like coincidence and feel like fate, a strategic arrangement of circumstances designed to steer you toward a specific outcome they had chosen on your behalf. They moved pieces into position around you the way someone moves pieces on a board, and you were the only player at the table who did not know a game was being played. That was not an accident. The concealment of the game was the game. The gap between what they were doing and what you were able to see was the precise distance they needed to operate freely. You did not know any of this. That is the cruelest part of what they built. They counted on your trust. They counted on the fact that you were the kind of person who does not assume the worst, who extends grace before suspicion, who believes that the people in proximity to you are operating from something at least adjacent to decency. They weaponized your goodness. They used your integrity as the blind spot through which they moved. Every conversation that landed slightly wrong, every moment where something deep in your instincts said wait, but your reasoning overruled it because you did not yet have the full picture. Those were not coincidences. Those were their fingerprints, right there in plain sight the whole time. You could not see them because you were being real in a room full of people performing a concern they did not feel. They assigned roles. Someone to get close, someone to report back, someone to plant the doubt in your mind that maybe you were the problem, maybe the discomfort you felt was your own instability and not the smell of something rotting beneath the floor. They rehearsed narratives about you in advance of any evidence, so that if you stayed calm, it proved their suspicion, and if you broke, it proved their narrative, and if you questioned, it proved your instability. There was no version of you they had not already written a verdict for. Every door available to you inside their design led to the same room, a room with no windows. A room they built with your name on it before you ever took a single step in their direction. But they built it without factoring in the one thing no blueprint can contain, the real you. There is a kind of move that cannot be prepared for, not because it is dramatic or loud or announced with the sound of someone who knows they are winning, but because it is quiet, because it comes from a place so deep inside a person that it registers not as strategy but as nature. You made that move. You made it in a moment when everything around you was specifically calibrated to pull your worst self to the surface, to make you reactive, to give them the version of you they had been patiently waiting for, so they could point at it and say, there is who they really are. The pressure was real. The engineering was sophisticated. And instead of breaking on the timeline they had scheduled, instead of reacting in the direction their architecture demanded, you did the one thing no blueprint in the history of control has ever successfully contained. You went still. Not the stillness of someone who does not understand what is happening around them. Not the stillness of someone frozen by confusion or paralyzed by the weight of what they are facing. The stillness of someone who sees the entire board. The stillness of someone who recognizes that in a room designed entirely around your reactivity, the most powerful move available is to simply refuse to be reactive. That stillness was not passivity. It was a decision, conscious, deliberate, made from the deepest part of you in real time under conditions designed to make that depth inaccessible. And the moment you made it, the architecture around you had nothing to attach to. The plan required your reaction as its next input, and when that input was withheld, the entire mechanism stalled. And then, from that place of stillness, you moved. Not in revenge, not in exposure, not with the performance of someone who has finally decided to show the world what was done to them. You moved in the direction of your actual truth. You made a decision rooted in principle rather than pain. Chose a direction that aligned with something real inside you, rather than one designed to damage them or elevate you in the eyes of anyone watching. That is the move that history cannot be written around. Not because it was bold in the way that performed boldness is bold, but because it was genuine in a landscape that had been running entirely on performance for as long as you could see in every direction. You walked into their equation as your actual self, and their equation had no variable for that. It simply broke. The aftermath was not immediate. That is what they never tell you about real moves. They do not always announce themselves with instant dramatic consequences that everyone can see. The reversal was quiet. It was the growing silence in rooms that had previously hummed with plans about you. It was the slight recalibration in how certain people positioned themselves in your vicinity. It was the moment when the people holding their breath for your scheduled collapse realized that the schedule had lapsed and the collapse had not arrived. The move changed history not because it was historic in scale, but because it was honest in nature. And honesty, introduced into an environment built entirely on manufactured pressure and coordinated performance, does not just survive, it dominates, because it is the only thing in the room that does not require maintenance to remain standing. You were not in the room when it happened. You were not there for the first crack in their certainty, the first moment when someone said something and the silence that followed communicated more than any response could have. You did not witness the precise expression on the faces of the people who had built your collapse when they realized that their building was empty, that you had not entered it, that the version of you they had built it for was a projection and not a person. You will never see that room, but you do not need to, because the evidence of what happened inside it has been written on every surface of everything that followed, and you have the literacy now to read it clearly. Watch the people who moved in coordination against you. Watch how they move now in the spaces where they cannot avoid being visible to you. There is a hesitation that was not there before, a recalibration in how they position themselves relative to you. The kind of distance that is not disinterest but discomfort, the specific discomfort of someone who does not trust their own predictions anymore. The ones who used to circulate fluent theories about your future are quieter now, in spaces where your name comes up. The ones who used to orbit you, as if studying you, now give you more room than feels natural. These are not accidents of social geometry. These are the involuntary readjustments of people who have realized that the map they were using no longer matches the terrain. They are recalculating, not because they have suddenly developed respect for you in any pure sense, but because you have become genuinely unpredictable to them. And unpredictability in someone you organized to control is not merely inconvenient. It is threatening at a level that goes deeper than strategy. There is something more personal in what they felt when the realization arrived, more uncomfortable than strategic embarrassment, more lasting than the frustration of a failed plan. Because in order to build a blueprint for someone's collapse, you have to have already decided specific things about them. That they are weak in knowable ways, limited in mappable ways. That they will always choose the comfortable option over the courageous one, the safe path over the true one, the performance over the principle. You have to have looked at a full human being and reduced them to a set of predictable inputs and outputs. And when that person defies the reduction, when they demonstrate a depth that your model had no room for, the collapse is not just strategic, it is ontological. The worldview that justified the planning collapses alongside the plan, and that is not a small thing to carry. It follows people into spaces they thought were private. It arrives uninvited at moments they thought were safely removed from the situation. They will revise the narrative. They are practiced revisionists, and they will find a way to reorganize the story so that their position within it remains defensible. They will say, the circumstances changed. They will attribute your move to factors external to you, to luck or timing or variables that had nothing to do with the quality of your character or the depth of your nature. Because acknowledging that you outmove them by simply being yourself would require a candor that people who operate through control are not architecturally capable of. But underneath every revision, underneath every retelling and re-retelling, the truth persists in them the way truth always persists in the people who witnessed it. They planned everything. Your move changed history. And in the private hours, they know it, especially when they are performing otherwise. People talk about power as if it always announces itself loudly, as if the most powerful presence in any room is the one occupying the most space with volume and declaration and visible force. But you learned something in those years of being their subject, in those years of living inside an architecture designed to use your speech against you. You learned that silence, real silence, not the silence of someone with nothing to say, but the silence of someone who has made a clear decision about who deserves the truth and found the people around them wanting. That silence is the most disorienting force available in an environment built entirely on your reactivity. They needed your words the way a parasite needs a host. Every move they made was calibrated to draw language from you that they could repurpose for their architecture. Every orchestrated misunderstanding was a request for your explanation. Every planted doubt was an invitation to defend yourself. Every strategic piece of social pressure was designed to make you open your mouth and provide the raw material they needed for the case they had already decided to build. And the more clearly you began to see this design, the more your silence transformed from something involuntary, the silence of someone hurt and unsure of what to say, into something deliberate, a refusal, active and principled, and rooted in a clear-eyed assessment that you were not going to provide testimony in a proceeding you had never agreed to participate in. You stopped performing for an audience that had already written your review before the curtain went up. Something extraordinary happened when you stopped. The absence of your explanation created a space that they were compelled to fill. Because people who are trying to build a case against someone they are studying cannot function in the absence of material. When you stopped supplying the material, they were forced to project. And projection, when it comes from people operating from guilt and the need to control, tells the truth about the projector and not the projected upon. Every narrative they invented to fill the silence you created was a confession about themselves. Every assumption they broadcast as fact about your inner life was a description of their own interior. Your silence became a mirror, and what it reflected back at them was not what they expected to see. It was not you, it was themselves. And that reflection, arriving in the space where your explanation used to live, unsettled them in ways they are still managing. This is the architecture of the silence that no blueprint accounted for. They planned for a loud version of you, a version that fought in the open, that gave them clean targets, that participated in their frame. They had nothing prepared for someone who withdrew from the entire economy of their attention and built something different in a space they could not access. Your silence was not absence, it was construction. In every moment you chose not to explain yourself to people committed to misreading you, you were building something that they could not see and therefore could not reach, a clarity uncontaminated by their narrative, a sense of self rooted deep enough to stand without their validation, a version of yourself capable of the move that changed everything. And they handed you every single resource you needed to build it, every time they tried to crack you open and found only stillness where they had scheduled noise. There is a specific and particular cruelty in what they planted, not the cruelty of open hostility, which at least has the honesty of declaring itself, the cruelty of seeds, doubt, introduced early, when you were still soft enough to receive it without immediately recognizing it for what it was, dressed in the language of concern, delivered in the register of people who want the best for you, embedded in moments of apparent vulnerability and care. You might want to be careful about how you come across. People have been saying things. I'm only telling you because I want you to succeed. Seeds. designed not to cause immediate visible damage, but to grow slowly, over time, to become indistinguishable from your own internal voice, to make you doubt yourself from the inside, so they never had to break you from the outside. That is the most sophisticated version of what they do. And it worked, for a time, in the ways it was designed to work. You carried those seeds longer than you will ever be fully comfortable acknowledging. You carried them in the way you second-guessed your instincts at critical moments when your instincts were right. In the way you dimmed yourself in rooms where your full presence would have been exactly what was needed. In the way you apologized for things you had not done and deferred to opinions that had not been earned and softened the edges of truths that deserved to be sharp. You watered their seeds with your own self-examination. You gave them the light of your attention at moments when that attention should have been turned toward the work you were here to do, the relationships that were actually nourishing you, the future they were trying to ensure you never believed you deserved. You were generous with yourself in one direction and suspicious of yourself in another. And the line between those two directions had been drawn by them, not by you. But here is what they could not have anticipated when they chose the soil for their seeds. The soil was already occupied. Something was already growing in you long before any of them arrived with their calibrated concerns and their strategic doubts. Something that preceded every relationship they later poisoned, every environment they subsequently salted, every version of yourself they spent time trying to make you abandon. Not a philosophy, not a belief system they could deconstruct with argument. A knowing, quiet, persistent, not always accessible in the loudest moments, but never absent. The kind of knowing that exists underneath every layer of manufactured doubt like bedrock underneath topsoil. Unmovable, patient in the way that only the genuinely real are patient. The kind of knowing that does not announce itself. It simply waits. When the move happened, when the moment arrived that required something deeper than strategy, that knowing was there, exactly where it had always been. Under every seed they planted, under every layer of doubt they cultivated, under every version of yourself they had encouraged you to doubt, fully intact, fully available, fully yours. And what grew from the combination of that original knowing and everything they had subjected it to was not what they had planted. It was not collapse or diminishment or the comfortable, manageable version of you they had been trying to produce. The doubt became discernment. The isolation became depth. The pressure that was applied to break you open became the force that compressed you into something more concentrated, more precise, more fundamentally yourself than you would have been without it. They planted the conditions for your undoing. What grew was your clarity. And there is not a version of their strategy that could have predicted that outcome, because it emerged from something in you they never had access to.